2016 is half over, and NASA scientists say it was the hottest half year on record.
Now to the historic flash flooding being called a 1 in a 1,000-year event.
Scenes like this play throughout the small town 16 miles west of Baltimore. Water rushed through the streets, turning roads into rivers and sweeping away anything in its path.
There's people in the water!
Scientists tell us there is a 0.1% chance of this kind of rain event ever happening, and clearly here in Maryland, it did, George.
Wow. A disaster movie. It was like if you've seen the Avengers come and just go through a town.
And it's so rippled, it looks like an earthquake hit.
The storm was so powerful, it created new paths.
Figured it's gonna happen living down in Ellicott City, I guess, but not like this. This is unbelievable. Wow, unreal.
NASA researchers found the first 6 months of this year weren't just warmer than usual, they were the warmest since record-keeping began in 1880.
This is really important because if it's hot and if it's dry, then we have problems like forest fires, like droughts. This is what really concerns us.
As the fire seen in this time-lapse video grows closer to the historic Pacific Coast Highway along one of the most scenic drives in the country.
It is a popular vacation destination for many in the mid-state, but tonight the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is issuing an unprecedented travel warning. Pregnant women and their partners should stay away from the Miami area. It is the first time the CDC has warned people not to travel to an American city.
Now, Lee County Mosquito Control says the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which can carry the Zika virus, is showing increased resistance to pyrethrum, common pesticide used to control mosquito populations.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of that.
This after more than a dozen cases of Zika virus were contracted in Miami.
This is the first occasion where a mosquito has gotten infected and transmitted others. And of course, once they become infected, they can infect mosquitoes in turn. In Siberia, this is an uncommon event.
Experts say unusually warm weather is responsible for the outbreak, defrosting cells which have been laying dormant for decades. Deer that graze in the area were the first to be infected. More than 2,000 of them have already died.
You know, on your next trip to Disney World, if you have one planned, you may notice something a little different on your feet.
The next time you go to a Disney theme park, you may want to pay a little closer attention to your shoes.
Disney has just obtained a patent for a new type of technology that can track theme park guests with their feet. According to the Sentinel, information given to the patent agency says Disney would use sensors and cameras to help identify guests and provide a customized park experience.
Well, Disney says, well, they already do track guests.
Currently, Disney World can track guests through magic bands, hotel keys, RFID bracelets, fast passes, and credit cards.
Well, have you ever told your doctor a little white lie? Well, some researchers at ASU are using facial recognition technology so they can detect when you are.
They say the goal isn't to confront patients, but rather to help them. He wants to tap into those emotions using facial recognition and voice tracking technology so patients get more out of the appointment.
Your facial expression, the way your head is moving, your body movements, all of that is 70% of listening.
Dr. Chisholm says he hopes this technology one day becomes very common in doctors' offices.
Multiple passwords and security questions will soon be a thing of the past. Australian banks and the tax office are pioneering new technology, which means all you'll need is your voice.
Well, you just heard it, and it's true. A Georgia court.
Well, it's lewd, it's crude, it's awful, but it is legal in Georgia
And we're talking about something that has been called upskirting. It's the practice of somebody taking a cell phone photo of a person's private parts. Most oftentimes, it has been men sneaking up on women's skirts.
It's disturbing. A warning for women in Georgia: if someone secretly takes pictures under your skirt, it is perfectly legal. The state does not have an upskirting law, and due to a technicality, Georgia's Court of Appeals says upskirting doesn't count as invasion of privacy.
Well, I was shocked, like most people, that it sounds absurd that you could not be found guilty of doing something that's so offensive.
Well, I think that's kind of crazy. If somebody came up my skirt and tried to take a picture, I would assume they would want to arrest that person.
Family outraged after a former Hamilton County bus driver rapes their daughter and avoids jail time.
It's sickening. Those are the only 2 words Chandra Whitlock can use to describe the rape case involving Alexander Rodriguez. The system is messed up these days. And Rodriguez is being treated like a DUI offender. Whitlock agrees. Just to know that there's someone out there that does that to a little kid and he's allowed to roam free, but they'll put someone for a DUI in jail. It's not right.
When it comes to choosing clothes for our kids, the decisions are usually fairly routine, but should they be? As Catherine Hauser shows us, more and more parents are seeing clothing as an opportunity to help shape their children.
Haley Woods tries to buy gender-neutral clothes, and the term is gaining popularity.
We really need gender-neutral clothing to start at this age because we're building up on how to start dismantling, sexism and misogyny and all that stuff. And it really does start from this tiny building block.
But creating a unisex wardrobe is challenging. While some big retailers are gradually including a more gender-neutral look, offering clothes that defy gender norms.
The newer generation of parents thinks that children shouldn't be limited by their gender.
Does this look wholesome to you? This video alone could freak out parents, but the Satanic Temple is trying to reach students by getting into elementary schools nationwide.
That is scary that anybody would even consider letting Satan into anywhere.
New at 6, Satan in our schools. It's a topic going wild on social media nationwide this week.
It could turn into one hellish extracurricular activity. That is, if the Satanic Temple has its way.
It's after school Satan, so I picture it sort of more like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Yep, you heard that right. It's called After School Satan. Amy Jensen, who graduated from DU and used to teach in Denver, has offered to sponsor the club at this Tucson school. Jensen says it's more about opening minds and less about worshiping Satan.
I want to say that everybody's entitled to their beliefs, however, I feel like that's just a little odd.
Overseas in Poland, what's known as the Catholic Woodstock ended with a tremendous Sunday Mass and parting words of wisdom from Pope Francis.
At one point during the celebrations, the Pope asked the masses gathered from so many different countries to hold hands and to find common humanity. It underlined a message he's had all week: find that which unites, not divides.
Pope Francis took a tumble at a mass in Poland today. It was captured on video. The 79-year-old was blessing the altar with incense at one of the country's holiest shrines when he lost his balance. His Holiness was helped up.
It underlined a message he's had all week: find that which unites.
It's also worthy for us to recognize that our nations have worked together for security and peace and human dignity around the world. In Paris, the most ambitious agreement in history to fight climate change, a new sustainable development set of goals to end extreme poverty and promote health and education and equality for all people.
Now, from a local government perspective, I think the SDGs are specifically significant for 2 key reasons. First, we now have the first ever comprehensive and practical definition of sustainable development, which acknowledges the interconnectivity between economic, social, and environmental dimensions of development. And this is hugely significant and a welcome step forward. It enables all sectors of society to come together behind a shared vision of a more peaceful, sustainable and prosperous world where everyone has a role to play in making this a reality.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to inform you that the world now is a global village.
I think that it is very clear that the time is now for us to all get involved. It is not everybody that is aware, and continuous engagement, conversation, publicizing this, and conscientizing everybody to realize that the SDGs are real, and this is what is going to change our world, this is what is going to change our localities, is more apparent today than ever before.
So we're going to keep on pushing hard to shape an international order that works for our people.
The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will meet his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg next month.
The main aim of these talks is to restore trade and economic ties between Russia and Turkey.
In recent years, Turkey's been good at making enemies, but that appears to be changing. Moscow, the latest neighbor to be invited to a return to cordial relations.
We will increase the number of friends we have and reduce the number of enemies. Our efforts in this regard will continue at a steady pace. And not only with Russia or Egypt, we also want to improve ties with all Black Sea and Mediterranean countries.
As soon as possible and at an accelerated pace. That's what Turkey says about normalizing relations with Russia. Turkey's Deputy Prime Minister Mehmet Şimşek made the announcement after meeting his Russian counterpart Arkady Dvorkovich in Moscow.
It sounds like something you'd find in the Bible, a river turning red, but as it turns out, there is an explanation for what's happening. State health officials say they believe they know what's making the river look this way, and they say Burlington area resident John Dawson got quite a surprise this past week.
As I've been working on fence up here, I've seen it up around the bend over there as well.
While working on his property near the Souris River, Dawson noticed a red tint on the water and the color started to grow. That's when he took some pictures and sent them to the North Dakota Department of Health.
It almost looks like it's oil floating on top of the water, not what you'd normally think of with algae. In addition, it's changed colors actually. It's been green, it's been red, it's mostly red.
In Brevard County, unfortunately, we have to report more dead fish have been spotted in the Banana River.
Daryl Nail got the tip late this afternoon. Daryl, what can you tell us about what's happening this time?
Ed, thanks for allowing us to come on your boat and show us what's going on. What did you see in terms of, can you quantify how many dead fish?
Yeah, Daryl, thanks for putting a spotlight on this. First of all, you know, this is something that's very important to me as the commissioner here. But as we turned here and made the right and went south, we started seeing little specks here and there, and then all of a sudden we thought were bubbles, and then it turned out to just be thousands and thousands of fish. And as you can see, it's just when I started the video, towards the end of it, I was just devastated. I really had no words for what I witnessed here.
And this is the same area. This was ground zero for the massive fish kill that was back in March. How does it make you feel to see this happening again?
Well, this is devastating. I'm in awe when we look at this stuff.
Begins with hundreds of dead fish washing up on the shores of Lake Thurmond. Early this morning, state agents launching an investigation to find out what caused that fish kill.
This is the worst I've seen.
Larry Spivey has lived on the lake for more than 16 years, and this is the first time he's seen something like this happen just feet away from his back door.
But this weekend, something was different.
I come out to test my boat. I've been working on it, and I noticed there was fish just floating everywhere.
And not just one or two, but hundreds of fish. McCormick says he's never seen anything like it.
I've never seen fish kill out here. I mean, it's got a pretty good flow through, and even in the years before when the lake was really low, you think that's when they would have it, you know, but it wasn't. It was, the lake's full right now.
Hundreds of dead fish wash up along the banks of the Au Glaize River. This is NBC 24 News at 6. Good evening. I'm Laura Emerson. Tonight's big story, the investigation into what is causing the fish kill in Putnam County.
Lots of people are creeped out by the idea of scientists making human-animal hybrids in the lab, but the government's ban on funding the research turned out to be short-lived. The National Institutes of Health plans to start funding hybrid research in early 2017, around a year and a half after saying scientists needed to slow down and consider the implications. So when it comes to mixing human and animal DNA, that genie is long out of the bottle. What the government has been stalling over is a step further, putting not just human DNA, but human stem cells into animals.
Well, what BGI can offer is something I could only dream about, and that is having whole genome sequencing done on these 2,000 extremely bright individuals. So by whole genome sequencing, I mean sequencing all 3 billion base pairs of DNA for each of these 2,000 individuals.
Oh, where intelligence is in the genes?
Well, people ask questions like, why do you want to do this sort of research? And I think in honesty, any scientist would say, because I'm interested in understanding it. I want to understand why some kids learn better than others, why some children have trouble in school, trouble learning. But in terms of society, and what good is it? Well, there's some bad that people worry about, like designer babies, parents might select babies based on genes. I would say, well, we ought to talk about it. Maybe it isn't totally a bad thing to do.
we have initiated to sequence 5,000 twins. We are going to sequence 1 million Chinese in order to know more about their genomes. I don't know how many years it would take, and then we expect that the gene will tell us the answers. I have a dream that we are going to sequence every living thing on Earth. We are going to sequence everybody in the world. And the genomics, no doubt, is an opportunity for us all.
In theory, of course, you should be able to clone humans because humans are not different from other mammals in that respect. And our society is not ready to accept artificially cloned people.
The first time I see these embryos under my microscope, and then after 4 months, and these embryos they are becoming the pigs, and I'm just thinking, oh, these pigs, they used to be the embryos under my microscope, and I made these embryos. I was so excited about that.
Why?
Oh, it is really like being a mom. Yes, this is this is a life that I created. It is by my hand.
The best humans have not been produced yet. The smartest humans or the longest lived humans, the more we know about the coding, the more we can optimize and move toward the direction that we want to move in. If you want to produce smart humans or nice humans, honorable humans, caring humans, whatever it is, those are traits that are related to certain presence or absence of certain genes, and will have much finer control over the types of people that are born in the future through this. But it's an essentially mathematical description of there's a trait that you're interested in, you want to push it in one direction or the other, which switches do you turn on and off in order to do that. We do it with cows. We have super cows and super chickens. We have animals that mature 10 times, well, several times faster than the wild versions. So we've pushed those animals in directions we want to push them, but we haven't really pushed ourselves. And I think people will push themselves.
Might I have your attention, boys and girls? We've all heard that in the classroom. That's normal. The teacher walks in, addresses the class, calling you boys and girls.
And then you pay attention, right? But for Charlotte and Mecklenburg schools, it might become a thing of the past. School leaders made a recommendation that students are not referred to as boys or girls.
It's just one of the guidelines laid out in training for the district's new anti-bullying policy.
School is no longer about reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's now about gender fluidity.
One policy allows students to participate in extracurricular activities and overnight trips based on their gender identity. For example, a student who identifies as a girl would be allowed to participate in an all-girls overnight trip.
Anti-bullying guidelines that you guys are adopting or have adopted are the result of the radical homosexual agenda.
This is Chris Mosier. Morning, Chris.
Morning.
Chris is the first transgender athlete to make the men's national team.
And the first to be in a Nike ad.
How'd you know you'd be fast enough to compete against men?
I didn't!
The spot creating a lot of buzz.
Yeah, but how'd you know the team would accept you? I didn't.
For the transgender community, the move is groundbreaking.
Now I feel like the door has been opened.
The ad representing a shift in how people are viewing gender.
The ad was produced by Portland-based Wieden & Kennedy, but its effects will no doubt be felt across the country.
I have been covering conflict for 12 years. I have never experienced anything like Syria. Once I got into the city, I have to say it was just breathtaking. The apocalyptic landscape had become a moonscape. There was nothing but dust, rubble, gray. Entire city blocks razed to the ground. You just saw the pictures, buildings, apartment buildings with no walls, still sort of hanging, suspended there. As I said before, I've been a war correspondent for more than 10 years. I have been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, and every terrible conflict that you can think of. I have never seen anything on the scale of Aleppo.
Yeah, meteor showers expected to light up the sky tonight.
That's right. This particular shower happens every August, but NASA says this year it's going to be bigger than ever.
According to NASA, this month's celestial event may be even more spectacular.
The conditions for a public health emergency of international concern.
The Zika outbreak made headlines around the world and was declared a public health emergency. In Rio de Janeiro alone, nearly 30,000 suspected cases have been reported so far this year.
House declaring a public health emergency in Puerto Rico because of the Zika virus.
Britain's public health agency says music may not be the only thing you catch. This year, 234 cases of measles have been linked to festivals and other large public events, compared to 54 from the same period last year.
Facial recognition technology was put on the map in 2002. It was used during the Super Bowl to scan for any potential criminals in the stands. Since then, the technology has progressed, of course. Now it can even distinguish your emotions. And what better place to test this than at a major political rally? Microsoft clearly felt this way and used it at the recent Democratic and Republican convention.
It was terribly dangerous to let your thoughts wander when you were in any public place or within a range of a telescreen. The smallest thing could give you away. A nervous tic, an unconscious look of anxiety, a habit of muttering to yourself, anything that carried with a suggestion of abnormality or having something to hide. In any case, to wear an improper expression on your face was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in Newspeak. Face crime, it was called. George Orwell wrote this in 1949, and back then such scenario would have probably seemed crazy. But is it today? In the modern days, facial recognition technology is hardly a surprise to anyone. Initially used by law enforcement to detect criminals going as far back as 2002, now it's more and more used in the world of entertainment and social media. And new technology is now being actively tested by Microsoft, which takes this even further. It's called Real Crowd Insights, and it recognizes your emotions. It can show a whole range of the things you're feeling, from joy and calm to contempt and disgust.
Good evening, everyone. It is a touchy subject. How far is too far when it comes to free speech?
Some people say what happened at this week's Kenai Peninsula Borough meeting was appalling. Others think it's a little comical.
Regardless, it definitely was different and has stirred up a lot of controversy. The meeting opened with a prayer to Lucifer.
That which will not bend must break, and that which can be destroyed by truth should never be spared its demise.
A symbol that even a routine meeting,
it is done. Hail Satan,
can take a turn you'd never expect.
Let's get right to that big breaking news out of Milwaukee this morning. There is an increased presence in the neighborhood where that shooting occurred. Looting and even more fires have been reported overnight.
Overnight violence erupting in Milwaukee during a protest in response to a deadly officer-involved shooting.
This is the police. Leave the area.
Officers out in full riot gear. People panic, running for cover in the smoke-filled streets as the sound of gunshots ring out. This car up in flames.
This is the whole gas station.
Says several buildings, including a gas station, an auto parts store, and a bank, are torched as hundreds of people flooded the streets Saturday night.
Another dry day means we get further away from catching up to normal rainfall.
Not for this long that I can remember. I remember rainy summers we've had in the past few years, but not this extended period of time that we're seeing now.
Well, normally in this part of the Ipswich River, the water level is about waist deep on me, but today, as you can see, you'd be lucky if you can find small pools of it in this part of the river.
Us in oppressive heat, but the rising mercury is not our only problem.
Yeah, if you love spinach or sweet corn in the summertime, you may have noticed the lack of rain. In fact,
Right now, Northeast Ohio is officially in a drought.
Well, all of Northeast Ohio ranges from abnormally dry to moderate drought conditions, and it's not just our front lawns that are feeling it.
Drought continues in western New York, and landscapers are paying the price. News 4's Angela Christopher.
I'm only 28 years old, so I can't remember it being this dry ever.
It's the worst drought to hit Southern Africa in 3 decades, and millions of people are affected. Extreme weather conditions such as drought and floods have increased in frequency and severity in recent years.
Good evening, I'm Rena 9, and at least 2 people are dead as historic floods slam the Deep South.
At least 2 people have died and more than 1,000 have been rescued from what is being called unprecedented historic flooding.
Rains flooded out businesses and entire neighborhoods. Motorists abandoned their vehicles and homeowners were forced to evacuate.
My house is completely flooded and I've never flooded before.
Since last night, more than 16 inches of rain has fallen, causing several rivers to overflow. Nearly 70 roads have been closed.
A bizarre story out of Clovis tonight. A mother and son are charged with incest, and there's more to this. 36-year-old Monica Medes gave her son up for adoption when he was just a baby. That baby is now 19-year-old Caleb Peterson. He came back to Clovis as an adult, reconnected with his biological mother, and became romantically involved. The couple told the website they're going public about their relationship because they want to raise awareness about genetic sexual attraction.
I looked at her and she looked at me and I kissed her. It was a real kiss. It had feelings behind it. It had a spark in that. Ever since then it just stayed. Honestly, I really didn't think we would. We were both consenting adults. If it comes down to it, it's just like the gays. They're as long as they're over 18, everything's fine. You know what I mean? So I thought.